Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, the 2nd of November, 2020, and we're going to do something a little different today for our free parenting webinar series. I am going to use this time to answer some questions that have been emailed to me over the last few days. So instead of having a formal presentation on a very specific topic, we're just going to pause that and try to answer some questions from some folks. So I have several questions here, and as you join the webinar today, if you have a question, go ahead and type it in and I will do my best to answer. So let me go to okay, so the first question, and once again, before we even get started, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Dr. Tara Egan, and I own a private practice here in Charlotte, North Carolina called Charlotte Parent Coaching. I also have an additional LLC called Dr. Tara Egan, and you can find me at both of those locations, but I do encourage you to go to www.drtaraegan.com because from there you can access a whole bunch of stuff that I've been doing, whether it's getting copies of my book or being able to link up to my podcast or check out the free parenting private Facebook page that I encourage folks to join, especially if you have kids who are in middle school or high school. There's webinars there. There's opportunities to hire me for public speaking events. So that's a really great way to connect with me further and find out more about what I do. So today's question and answer, we're going to start with one question. And the question says, my child is heading back to in-person school this week, and I'm very nervous. She's only in first grade, and I'm worried she's going to have separation anxiety. She really hasn't been without a parent since March. What are some things that I can do to support her? So I can understand why this question is being submitted, because here in the local area of Charlotte, the kids are going back for the first time to a 4-day in-person school week. So this, for a lot of kids, is their first day of in-person school this year. So some tips I have as far as separating from your child, and there's going to be some kids who are going to separate just fine. They're very excited about seeing their teacher in person, interacting with peers, just doing the school routine. But some kids are going to be nervous because they just haven't been apart from mom and dad. They get nervous about the routines. They feel like maybe they don't know their classmates very well, and that's very normal for them to feel that way. So the first thing I suggest parents do is just to normalize that feeling. And I think we've all been there, a first day at a job. When I think back to when I was going to school, you have the butterflies in the stomach. It feels like you're not going to be back with your parent for a long, long time. And so kids are going to have that feeling, but then it might be intensified a bit because of the distance that kids have to keep from each other, wearing a mask all day, just that stressed out feeling that we all have as we transition back into our regular routine, even though we know that COVID cases still continue to rise, especially in our area. So normalize that feeling, and it's okay to say, oh goodness, I understand that you're a little nervous. Okay, that's okay, honey, that you're a little nervous. And so it's important that you go to school and have thoughts about how you're going to have a good day, and it's going to be so nice to see your teacher and get to be a learner in the classroom. And so we're not telling kids not to be nervous or that they're silly or they have nothing to worry about, because we don't want to make them feel like being nervous is a sign that something's wrong. So first we want to normalize those nerves and let kids know that even though you're nervous, you can still have a great day. And then also, you can let kids know just a couple tips on what they can do if they're feeling uncertain or they have a question. You can remind them that they know how to raise their hand and can wait for the teacher to call on them, that they can approach a teacher and wait quietly until he or she can turn to them and ask them, and they can tell them how they feel. I'm missing mom right now. I don't know what to do next. Whatever could be a concern, you can help your kids with some specific phrases that they can say to an adult to get the reassurance that they need in that moment. If you have kids who are particularly fearful, a couple things that can help is giving them a picture, like you just print it on your printer, and, make sure it's small, and you let them just keep it in their pocket. And so a picture of mom or the family, and encourage them to leave it in their pocket, because they can just reach into their pocket and touch it and know that it's there, and remind themselves that mom and dad are thinking of them, and are knowing that that son or daughter is having a great day. So sometimes having that physical reminder of reassurance can be really helpful. Recently, I've been working with a handful of kids who've been in private schools and have done some transitioning back to real life school prior to this point. And the kids who have the most nerves are kids who really benefit from having very consistent routines in the morning. And they benefit from having parents who find a couple terms that really speak to that child. Like, there's a child I'm working with right now who's just a little guy. And we've talked about how he needs to tell his brain that even if he's scared, he's okay. So he knows to say, I am okay, when he's feeling nervous. And he even writes those words just in pen on his wrist. So when he's at school, he can lift up his sweatshirt and see the words, I am okay. And then he can use that to replace the thoughts in his head that are more fearful. So there's a couple strategies that you can teach your kids so that they feel like, one, you're thinking about them, two, they're competent, and three, that they have some specific strategies and words that they can use with an adult or use towards themselves to stay calm and benefit from the plus sides of being away from mom and dad and in school. So hopefully those are some strategies that can be helpful. And if you have a child that is absolutely refusing to go to school, like you're forcing them to go, they're screaming and crying, maybe they're even starting to cry the night before, I don't want to go tomorrow, please don't make me, that would be a great time to call a therapist, because a lot of times kids can hit the restart button on that when they work with a third party and can just get started fresh, and they understand that this is a person who is there to support them and get them through the hurdles. Usually once kids are successfully able to integrate into the school environment for anywhere from 2 or 3 days to, let's say, 2 weeks, usually that crisis passes because they start to get involved and invested in the classroom, and they've made some friends, and the routine becomes more comforting. Okay, so next question. This is a good one. The stress of the election is making me grouchy and short-tempered with my kids. It may be days or even weeks before we know the results of the election. My kids are 7 and 9 years old, so they really don't understand. What recommendations do you have for parents to get through this stressful time? So as I indicated at the beginning of the presentation, it is November 2nd right now. So tomorrow is election day. So I think that for families who have really been following the election cycle, maybe they have a strong opinion on who is going to be the most beneficial for our country as far as, the president, who becomes president. This can be really stressful. And there's so much political divisiveness going on right now that it makes sense that it is trickling down to kids. And I know, having kids who are in middle school and high school, kids are talking about this. I mean, kids have an opinion. Sometimes they're getting into confrontative conversations on social media. So with this particular question, I see that the kids are 7 and 9 years old. So probably that isn't playing such a role. It sounds like this parent is more concerned about their level of stress and just having it impact their interactions with the kids. So first of all, if your kids are 7 and 9, they are, very understanding of language. They can understand things like, basically there's sort of a contest and there's 2 people trying to win the contest to become president or whatever, if maybe you're talking about a local election. And, you can convey to your kids what your value system is as far as which candidate versus the other, because that's part of educating our kids on how to be civic minded, is to say, not this person is a dirt bag and the other one isn't, but to say, this person is somebody who I think is going to be more helpful for the country. I really want this person to win. The contest is happening tomorrow night and it just makes me nervous. And so if it feels like I'm a little grouchy, sometimes our bodies react in a grouchy way when we feel stressed out. And maybe there's even an example that you could give about a time your child has reacted that way. So maybe they were really tense before going to school or playing in a baseball game, or on the way to Disney when it was just so excited and I can't stand that we're waiting so long. Whatever it is, there might be something that you can convey to them that will make your reaction relatable. Another thing is, give yourself a break. This is not the day, or this is not the week to be knocking it out of the park as far as, doing some amazing craft project with your kid, or I don't know, having some big social obligation or something. I mean, this might be the week that you order takeout a couple times, or you watch a few movies to get your mind off of what's happening. Like a little bit of self-care, giving yourself a break, understanding that this is really disruptive to the routine. There's so much news we're being inundated with. So I think it's important to just acknowledge that. And you can convey that to your kids, especially at 7 and 9, not in a doom and gloom way, but just to let them know, like, whew, mommy is really thinking a lot about this contest of who's going to win the presidency. And so it's making it so I'm going to watch TV a little bit more, or I'd like to, take more walks so that we can get some exercise and get some fresh air. And you can include them in on the fact that there's a little bit of a change in routine, and this is a great chance for them to have like an empathic moment. Sometimes our kids don't tune in to what's going on with us as parents. And a lot of times the things we have going on as parents are too stressful. They're adult problems. Like, our kids don't need to know that we're worried about our finances or anything like that. But this is something that you can convey to your kid in an age-appropriate way. Let them see you coping. Let them see you have self-care. I'll give you an example of this. My kids know that I'm very high alert over the election. And today is a long work day for me. And so I'm working really, really consistently from 11 a.m. till about 9 tonight. And so I told the kids last night, like, I am going to sleep in a little bit. Go ahead and get started with school, because I really want to have the stamina for my long day of work. And knowing that I'm sort of at high alert today, like, it was important to me that instead of getting up and being super mom and doing the dishes and walking the dogs and like just being present, like, it was okay for me to get a little bit more sleep this morning to really have the stamina to be an invested therapist and parent, because I believe this next 48 hours is stressful for a lot of Americans. So cut yourself a break. This is tough. Third question. My 15-year-old stays in a room all the time. She didn't used to be this way. Some of my friends say it's just what teens do, but it doesn't feel right to me. It also seems like she spends a lot of time sleeping during the day. Should I be concerned? And if so, what should I do to help? So I do believe that it is pretty common that kids have or teenagers have a lower tolerance for their parents or just other adults, like people who are not their friends, as they go deeper into adolescence. The things that we do sometimes feel boring. There's a lot of times as kids go through teenage years where our interactions with them are primarily based on like tasks. We question them. Did you do your homework? Did you clean your room? Did you call your grandmother? Did you scoop the cat litter? Like, it ends up being a very transactional interaction sometimes when we're talking to our teens, and that can get them worn out. That can make it really easy for them to want to avoid us. And then therefore they'll spend more time either in their room or, maybe out with friends. So one of the things that I want to acknowledge is that there is a tendency for that. However, if you see a dramatic change in your teen, where typically they're the teen who comes down, hangs out and does their homework at the kitchen table, maybe they're lounging on the couch and flipping channels, or they're, hanging out in the driveway with their little brother throwing baskets. Like, they're just a person who enjoys or has a tendency to be around family And suddenly they stop. Suddenly they become withdrawn. They creep up to their room. They're really lethargic. You go in and talk to them and they feel like disconnected and they're struggling to have a conversation. I would be concerned. A couple things I would think about is one, what are they doing online? So a lot of times kids are up in their room and they're consistently on their cell phones, on their computers, and they start to get involved in a internet world. And I just want to clarify, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're being preyed upon or sending naked pictures, but they can start to replace their real life world with the virtual world, where they're feeling closer and more connected to people online than they are with their family and real life friends. And there's a lot of things about the internet that can be very interesting for kids. I have a client who really loves to knit, and she knows that that's not a mainstream activity for a middle schooler to do. And she goes on to these knitting groups and looks at different patterns and talks about yarn, and it's a wonderful educational thing. And she will proudly show her mother what she's learned, or asked her mom, can we buy this yarn with my savings, my birthday money, so I can make this project and that project? Like, that's where a kid can really benefit from the internet, because the chances are they're not going to find a kid in their class who's like super into knitting. But if you see your child is just sort of sinking themselves into a world of looking at TikTok video after TikTok video, just as Snapchatting, hundreds, if not thousands of times a day, is up in their room, and they're showing that they either are withdrawn, irritable, maybe even sad, then I think it's time to intervene. I think it's time to either, one, if your child's particularly resistant to being more involved in family life, get some support through a therapist, or two, just have them understand that they need to be part of family life. So make sure they're coming to dinner. Make sure that they come down and set the table or walk the dog, or, you have them give an opinion on, we're trying to paint the living room. What color do you think? It doesn't need to be extensive, time-consuming interactions, but really including them in the culture of your home. The rhythm of your home is going to be really important. Another idea is to go into their room. So the other night, my daughter, for Halloween night, instead of doing like trick-or-treating and all of that and being social, she had this one friend who's really well quarantined, and she normally doesn't have a TV in her room, but she had hooked up this little screen so they could watch a bunch of TV shows and eat some snacks. And so I went in there and I just hung out with them. And I know not every teenager is receptive to that, so you may not want to do it while they have a friend over. But when I go into my child's room, she's not on high alert that I'm coming in to nag her about something or pry. It might just be for me to lounge around and admire how cute her hair looks and tell her a little story about something that happened. We're just connecting. So first thought, think about whether or not they're experiencing depression or inappropriate use of technology. Number two, have them be compelled to come out of their room and join into family life. And three, go into their bedroom and just offer a presence. You don't need to be digging through their stuff, but just lay on their bed and chat with them and have them understand that interactions with you aren't always just going to consist of whether or not they're getting their to-do list done. Okay, next question. Okay, we have two questions that are related to separation and divorce. The next question is, my ex-husband's fiance trash talks me to the kids and it really upsets me, or it really upsets them. How can I handle it so they're not so upset? So obviously I don't know the details of this situation. I don't even know how old the kids are. I'm assuming that they're old enough to understand that somebody's saying, something hateful about their mom. So maybe they're not, 2 and 3 year olds. Maybe they're 8 and 9, or they're, teenagers or something. So a lot of this is recognizing that you don't really have control over what's being said about you at the other parent's house. It's super tempting to call up your ex or to say snarky things and say, I heard you're talking about me and I don't appreciate it and you're a liar and all that stuff. I'm not saying completely not to do that, but generally that isn't effective. Most of these individuals who speak openly in a negative way are not going to be like shamed and, oh my goodness, you're right, I'm not making a good choice for the kids. Like, they're probably feeling pretty entitled and justified to say whatever it is they're saying about you. So recognize you may not have control in that area. Where you have control is what you role model to the kids as far as a reaction. So if they say, well, dad's fiance said that you're, I don't know, an idiot, or that you don't work hard, or that you lie, or whatever it is. One of the things I encourage parents to say to their kids is, what do you know to be true? Like, you know me better than dad's fiance. Do you know me to be a liar? Do you know me to be someone who doesn't work hard, or whatever the insult is? And most of the time kids will say, no, I know you to be, a good person. I know you to be somebody who works hard. And you can say, all right, then let's move on. You know what's true. And just because somebody says something to you doesn't mean they're saying something that's truthful. And you know me better than probably anybody. And so just recognize what you know to be true. And if kids see that you're very calm, that you're undisturbed by what the opinion of this other person is, I mean, I do like to encourage kids to recognize that some people, we really value their opinion. Most of us want our teachers to like us and feel proud of us. Most of us want our family members to like us and feel proud of us. I don't need a random person on the internet to like me and feel proud of me. And your child may not need, or hopefully doesn't need, dad's fiance to like their mom and feel proud of them. Hopefully their relationship with their mother stands the test of somebody saying something hateful. And also, your child is absolutely going to experience bullying behavior online at some point if they haven't already, because that's the way our world is most of us have a presence, even if it's just a professional presence like on LinkedIn or something, even if you're not super into social media. So this is a really good opportunity to role model how someone might deal with hateful comments or untrue comments that are being said. Now, it's obviously much more painful when somebody is saying something about you that is untrue to your child and is trying to impair the relationship between you and your child. But nothing's going to be gained by you getting distressed, you saying hateful things in return, you getting agitated and calling your ex and shouting at him because his fiance is so inappropriate. Like, to just sort of move on and say, this is an opinion I really care about. This isn't somebody who I'm feeling very respectful thoughts about. And then you might give some examples. I'm really more focused on whether or not my boss appreciates me, or my coworkers, or that lovely neighbor we have down the street. Like, I want her to know that that I'm a good person and that I'm caring and hardworking. Like, these are people in my life who matter. And so, like, let's move on. And you can't help your child give a neutral or matter-of-fact response to their dad's fiance if they hear negative comments. So you might say, if she says negative things about me, you could say, it makes me really uncomfortable when you talk about my mother. If you think that she's doing something that isn't right, like, talk to my dad, or figure out a way to talk to her yourself. But like, I'm a kid and I don't want to be in on this. So sometimes if we give kids a couple phrases where they don't have to defend you, don't say that about my mom, you're wrong, but just a few statements to set a boundary, sometimes that can just be helpful. Of like, I'm not going to engage with you on saying disparaging things about my mom. So some of that is just giving them those coping tools. Okay, I have one more question here. It says, I know you work with families who are going through a divorce. I think I need a lawyer. How do I figure out whom to hire? I don't think it's going to be an amicable divorce. My kids are only 5 and 7. So let me think, 2 weeks on the podcast that I host with my teen daughter, it's called One Day You'll Thank Me. We have a guest who is she's on the first episode of season 2, and I believe that episode is going to be released on November 11th. And she is a family law attorney. And she talks specifically in a portion of our interview about how there's different types of lawyers and they have different roles in the divorce process. So she talks about how there's, the bulldog lawyer, where they're, really much more aggressive and confrontative, and they're very comfortable going to court and going to a hearing and really defending their client in a very aggressive way. And then she talks about, the gamut back down to lawyers who work in a collaborative law, like a collaborative divorce relationship. And these are clients who are more reliant on things like mediation and having communication between both parents and keeping like protective measures over that co-parenting relationship. So that's one thing, is if you reach out to your friends and support system and you ask for recommendations, when you do have a connection with a lawyer, see if they're able to express what their style is. Because I know there's been people who've been very frustrated when they had a lawyer who was very averse to going in front of a judge and having a hearing, because they spent months and months and thousands of dollars on mediation and they got nowhere. And really not going to a hearing ended up being more about the lawyer than it was about the merits of the case. And then we've had other people say, this person was so aggressive and so abrasive that immediately broke down communication between me and my ex-partner, and it became very difficult for us to co-parent because there were so many bitter and angry feelings. So you have to factor in what the state of your divorce is. If it's not amicable, you're already at each other's throats, they have extremely aggressive lawyer themselves, then maybe having a more assertive lawyer might be beneficial. But if there's any chance that you could communicate in a collaborative way to care for your children, you may not want to go ahead with somebody who's going to potentially ruffle the feathers, or that's not even a good enough word, but just kind of get that person on high alert and in panic mode. So once again, good luck with that. That's really stressful. I do work with a lot of families who are going through separation and divorce, and I help families who need support in co-parenting, because even if the legal process is going on in the background, we still need to get stuff done day to day, because some of those divorce proceedings can take, honestly, years. And you still have to make decisions about your child as far as what school they go to. Are they going to, join the soccer team? Do they need braces? Is there some sort of medical care they need? So working with somebody like me, who is a parent coach, can be really helpful as you bridge like that time between when you file for divorce and when you have a final order. So keep that in mind. All right, that's the questions that were submitted to me. Hopefully these are helpful and that they apply to you. You can always submit more questions at drtaraegan@gmail.com, or you can message me on social media. We'll do this once in a while, where we just have office hours with Dr. Egan so that we can get some of those really specific questions out there so everybody can benefit from the answers. So I hope everybody has a great week. Stay tuned for this week's episode of One Day You'll Thank Me. This is our final episode of season 1. And the guest expert that we have this week is my brother. His name is Kevin Egan, and he is a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. And he is giving recommendations on how to be mindful and understanding of the potential role of substance abuse in teenagers. He is extremely experienced on this topic, and we have a great conversation. So I would love it if you tuned into that. That episode is going to be released on Wednesday, November 4th. So thanks so much.